Hi, this is Marjohn Love, and this is Marjohn's Musings. And today's show is Gallivanting. I'm sorry I haven't filmed an episode of Marjohn's Musings for you for a while, but I've been gone. Kevin and I have a tradition that we take 1 week vacation per year together, get away from all the hubbub and chores and obligations and work and whatever else not. So this year, 2018, instead of running away in the winter like we frequently do, going to someplace warm like Cancun, we travel south because Kevin typically gets a week off near our wedding anniversary, which is in January. But this year he had to work through that. And we were watching public television, and I saw a documentary on this place, the Rickman Library. And I said to Kevin, I'd really like to go there. He goes, well, it's in Amsterdam. You know, it rains there all the time. It's kind of a gray, dark city. I said, yeah, but isn't that where Van Gogh's from? And he's like, yeah. Well, we could go to the Van Gogh Museum. He goes, you could see Rembrandt there too. I said, okay, I'm ready. For the end of April, beginning of May, we flew out from Boston through Iceland Air. We had done that once before to go to Germany. I said to him, I would really like to spend a little time in Iceland. It's so beautiful from the air. So he set up for us to have a stopover on the way back. If you fly Iceland Air and you want to extend your trip, they do a hop-on, hop-off thing where it doesn't cost you any extra to stay a day or 2 or 3 or 5 or 7 and get back on the plane and head back to your destination. So that's what we did. We took a trip through Iceland to the Netherlands. Long flight. So Kevin decided, since it was my wedding anniversary present, he would take me there first class, since we would be on airplanes, not on the ground or the limo or waiting in between planes, but in the air 11 and a half hours. So it was lovely. We normally travel economy, so it's kind of fun to have somebody bring you a hot, wet washcloth and give you champagne and feed you your supper, and then later there's a snack, and then wake you up and feed you breakfast. It was sort of like, so this is how the other half lives. So anyway, we got to Amsterdam, and the airport isn't in the city proper. They had to move it out of the city. And Kevin took the luxury to get us a limo, since we'd been up for like 36 hours by the time we got there. And the limo driver's name was Jose, and he was from Colombia, and he was an interesting guy, but he ran into construction near our little bed and breakfast, which was called the Barangay B&B. And people had warned me that the accommodations in Amsterdam were small. So I was kind of mentally prepared for that. And then we get there, and I looked at our room, and it had a queen-size bed and enough room for one person to walk past it. Now there's 2 of us. And the room was an elongated rectangle, and they spent their money on the bathroom. It was a 3/4 bath, but it was world class, with one of those jungle showers and the hand wand and glass sides and raised pedestal sinks. They even had a bidet. I was like, wow. And then there was this little hutch that was like chest height. And in one set of cubbies was an electric teapot and snacks and teas and goodies. And then next to that was a bar that you could hang things, and then shelving. we were going to be there for like, I don't know, 8 days. And so I brought a lot of stuff. One of the things I brought was a raincoat. People said, bring rain gear. If you're going to Amsterdam, bring rain gear. So the first 4 days we were there, it rained or it poured. And we were taking public transportation. So we would wait at the side of the road at these little bus stop things and wait for the trams to come by, and you'd look down at your feet and water would pour off your head. It was pretty incredible. So what we did because of that is we spent our first 2 days at the Reich Museum, and I love the fact that for children they made a scavenger hunt, the 1 kilometer tour, and the kids are supposed to look through and find this and find that and find something else. One of the things that they were to look for was the doll houses, and we knew we were going to go to Amsterdam for several months. You know, we booked way ahead. So I got a talking book for the dead down times when there's nothing much going on. And the book was called The Miniaturist, and it was narrated by Davina Porter, who did a beautiful job. But The Miniaturist was based on the dollhouse at the Reich Museum. I found the story fascinating, but I found the ending was kind of left me hanging in the air. It could have been more compassionate, and it could have been more resolved. Here's this mysterious miniaturist with special powers like telepathy and foreknowledge and stuff, and yet you never meet her. You meet her dad. She's taken off somewhere, and the book ends, you never get to meet the miniaturist who makes all the gorgeous little things for the dollhouses. And in the story, portents, little things that she sends that were not ordered. And the heroine of the story receives them and gets kind of distressed. It was kind of interesting. It was an interesting book. I don't know. You know, I'd give it like a 3.5, 4 stars just because Davina Porter did such a wonderful job. So we spent 2 days at the Rijksmuseum seeing Rembrandts and all sorts of things. And then we took a day and we went to the Keukenhof Gardens that have all the tulips. We drove there in a bus. It was a bus tour. And it was pretty amazing. You actually see fields and fields of tulips. And I brought my paints, but it's the height of the tourist season in the Netherlands. So our trip was half over when I finally got to sit down and paint. And so I started doing some watercolors of tulips. And then we had to go get the bus, and I didn't finish. But we had Drake come over and check us out, and he had a little duck with him. And they came over and visited. That was kind of fun. Our host at the Barangay told us that the food at the Keukenhof is expensive for what you get, and maybe it'd be better to bring a picnic. So we stopped at the cheese and brood shop, and we got, you know how you find Gouda cheese at the Market Basket or over at Shaw's? And we're at the cheesemongers, and I say, I would like some Gouda. I wanted the real deal from Holland. And the guy got huffy. And he goes, it's pronounced Gouda. And these are all Gouda. I was like, oh, okay, fine. So we brought sparkling water and croissants, and like the Gouda cheese is like the size of a truck tire, and they're yellow. Here, they're small and they're red, but there, they're ginormous and they're yellow. And he cut us a slab of cheese, and we brought yogurts. The one thing I'll say about the Barangay, you were never hungry in the morning. they bring you breakfast, and it was like granola and yogurt and toast and fresh fruit. And then in our room, we had one of these fancy coffee makers, and you could make a single person or for two people. And they brought us these big mugs. They must be a little bit like the French. They want a big mug of coffee in the morning. So you'd make both cups and put them in the big mug so that you had this big mug of coffee. And then each day was a different breakfast. One day it was cold cuts, and another day it was a big salad, and another day it was rolled up crepes filled with Nutella, and another day it was a breakfast pizza, and another day it was an omelet. It was kind of strange, though, because they didn't bring it until 9 a.m., and then by the time you got done eating breakfast and getting sorted out, it was 10 before you left the room. I guess they thought that we were young stuff. We were going to go enjoy the nightlife. So we were in the old city, and one of the things Kevin did for us is he got us an I Am Amsterdam card, and it lets you ride all sorts of conveyances for the one price. You pay that price and you get entry into a dozen different museums. More than that. This entire brochure is full of what to do in Amsterdam. It's like, oh my goodness. And then there were day trips out of town, and we just did the one because, like I said, the first 4 days we were there, it rained. And then the day we went to the Van Gogh Museum, it was sun peeking out. I thought, oh, interesting. So the Van Gogh Museum was fascinating to me. I was telling you I was taking this course in Oriental painting with Carla Mattioli. She's going to be doing another session for 6 weeks in the summer. If you like plein air, to go out into nature, she's going to be doing that. But at the Van Gogh Museum, Vincent van Gogh had a collection of over 1,000 woodblock prints and posters and copies of his friends' artwork. And in the Japanese section, it showed 3 woodblock geishas, and then what Vincent learned from those geishas and the geisha that he made. Or a world-renowned famous artist in Japan painted people on a bridge in the rain. And Vincent had a bridge nearby, and he painted people on a bridge in the rain. And there are paintings of his art dealer with prints behind the art dealer, and in a glass case, the exact prints, because Theo inherited everything Vincent had, and Theo later died rather suddenly, and his widow, who had a baby and all these paintings, decided the way that she was going to manage was she was going to promote Vincent's work, and she did. And so she inherits all these woodblock prints, and she has them. It was fascinating to me to see how he was self-taught. He never went to art school. And at the Reich Museum, here's the Dutch masters doing these gorgeous, and I do mean gorgeous, still lives of flowers, or the supper table, or the breakfast table, or the take of the hunt, and the beautiful, glossy, perfectionistic detail. And then you look at Vincent van Gogh's work and you go, no wonder people of his own era thought, what are you doing? His own work was so raw and emotional. And he didn't spend 5 weeks in the studio painting every little detail. I found it very interesting. And my friend Lori And my son Andrew minded our two little papillons, Dax and Cookie. She wouldn't accept any money. And so I didn't know quite what to bring her. So I found this beautiful Vincent van Gogh silk scarf. And so I brought her that as a thank you. And Andrew, I said, Andrew, you're doing all this work. What can I bring you from Amsterdam? So Andrew says to me, I want chocolate, like they're renowned for their chocolate. So we had the cell phones and we went on the internet at the free Wi-Fi at the Barangay, and we found the best chocolate in Amsterdam. And we went to Le Grenache. It was in the red light district. I was so glad it was like the middle of the day. I was like, oh my goodness, how uncomfortable am I? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, you had to put an exponent behind the 10. I was so uncomfortable. And there on the street corner is this beautiful boy. Oh my goodness, he was gorgeous. Fluffing his hair and posing. I was like, oh no. I hope you don't get sick, sweetheart. Oh my God, he was beautiful. So we went and we hand-picked these beautiful handmade chocolates and brought them back to Andrew, but the place was not inexpensive. So I got like, I don't know, a 9-pack. And I thought, you know, for almost 2 weeks of walking dogs, that's not much of a payoff. So when we were in Iceland, I went to the duty-free shop and I got him a slab of chocolate from Iceland. And you think, Iceland? How does Iceland do chocolate? Well, they're a way station between the United States and Europe. And in the old days, the old planes couldn't make it all the way across. You needed somewhere to refuel. So in 1937, they started making chocolate. Boy, was it good. I also got a sheepskin, and inside it's branded free range since 875. I was like, wow. Back to Van Gogh. We went to the Van Gogh Museum, and we came out, and it was glorious. The kind of blue sky that you think you only see in paintings. It was brilliant, brilliant cobalt blue. And I said to Kevin, we need to take advantage of this. And so we hopped on a tram and we went out to this place called the Vanderlind. Oh, did I have a party. Vanderlind is a world-class art supply store. And when I was there, I bought a Da Vinci cloud brush. It's made of very soft hair, so squirrel hair in this case. Now, I did not need this brush. When I was in France, I bought 2 cloud brushes that I still have. But the French word souvenir means to remember, to go back again. And every time I use these brushes, I think of my trip to France and how I got to go to Giverny. So here I am packing for this trip to Amsterdam, and I thought, oh, I'll finally get to wear my big vest that I got at Giverny. And it's an artist adaptation of a fisherman's vest. It has all these pockets, including a great big one on the back where you can put your art paper. And I have been carrying kits around with me to paint for like, I don't know. Andrew is gonna be 36. And when he was little, I got this kit from Winsor Newton. And it's tiny. And I used so much of the paint that it was down to the plastic, and the hinge broke, and I had to put it together with tape. And then I bought tubes of paint to refill the little wells. They sell special traveling paint boxes. This one's from Cheap Joe's, and you put your colors into the well, and it typically comes with a little traveling paintbrush. So I'm at Vanderland. I'm inundated with art supplies. It's like putting a kid in a candy shop. I was so excited. You know, they had everything. They had everything. I was like, oh. And one of the things that they had was a Rhapsody set of traveler's paintbrushes. And a traveler's paintbrush is a high quality brush that comes in two pieces, and you can cover your valuable sable, and they have an air vent hole in the end so that the brush can dry. And then when you put it together, you have a full paintbrush. And they had a traveling set, I think it was 10 or 12 brushes, that goes into a carrying case like this. Oh, was I tempted. But I have a lot of brushes. I'm 65. I've been collecting brushes since my mother gave me this one when I was, I don't know, 14 years old, 13 years old. And the paint's chipping off and the end is gone. But my mother's deceased, and so I keep this paintbrush to remember her and the fact that she encouraged me. When we were in Germany, I got a stroke paintbrush at a flea market. It's Fritz, and I don't dare say the last two words because I'll murder them. So I was in the Vanderland, and here's this beautiful paintbrush, and I probably spent too much money for it, but the handle fit, and there was a metal end so that when you put it upright, you don't lose the end like I did off the brush my mom gave me. I have a Raphael brush, and it's a good brush. It's a Kolansky Sable, but the enameling on the handle is peeling off. So as I got a little older, when I bought paintbrushes, I would buy unenameled paintbrushes, just wooden paintbrushes. But if you have the correct diameter soda straw, any brush can be a traveling brush. This beautiful round is a Princeton Kolansky, and I got it at Beverly Wholesale Art Supply, which this place was not a wholesale art supply. This was a fine artist store. I know when my mom passed away, I inherited a little money. And one of the things I did is I bought a squirrel hairbrush. It's odd to think of that. This brush is from 1968. And my new one is from 2018. The math is a little sobering. But if you buy quality art supplies and you take really good care of them, they can last you a lifetime. So we went to the Vanderland, and then the next day was breezy and beautiful. Oh my goodness, it was gorgeous. In the upper 60s and even touched on 70. And sometimes when Kevin and I travel, I buy jewelry as mementos. And we went to the Diamond Museum and got to see diamonds through history and how they were mined. But you're in the Netherlands, and you would never know that apartheid existed, or the pit mines where black men slaved away, getting the diamonds out of this volcanic, sharp, glassy gravel. They had a life-size transparency of the new king. They have a new king for the first time in 47 years. There's a male sitting on the throne and his beautiful wife in their regalia. And there were displays of regalia. One of the things that was fun is they had a little display case with 10 or 12 different rings and all different stones that mimic diamonds and were used in place of diamonds over the century, and only one was a real diamond. And you were supposed to read all the information and then check it out, scope it out, and pick the correct diamond. And I read all that stuff and I looked and I thought, oh, that one's too sparkly and it's got too much color. That's a CZ. And that one's flat. It must be glass. And that one looks like a Herkimer. And I'm looking and I'm going, that's not light. It doesn't have enough life in it. It must be a white sapphire. And no. And then I looked and I went, bingo, there it is. And I pushed the button and I went, whoa, how did you know you got it right on the first try? And I thought, yeah. So we're at the gift shop there. And I wanted to see Van Eyck. There's this great book, The Girl with the Pearl Earring. And one of his famous paintings was made into a novel and then a talking book. And there was a Delft blue tile of the girl with the pearl earring. I got that for Lori. But I was looking for me for a souvenir, and I saw the necklaces, and then I remembered years ago, before I was married, I went to the Bahamas and I bought a necklace, and the lady said, "Are you sure you want to get it that short?" I looked at her funny. She said, "Well, you're young and slender now, but we don't stay that way. It might be good if you bought it a little bigger." And of course, me, headstrong that I am, I was like, I think I'll get the one I picked, thank you. Because it was gold, and the longer it was, the more expensive it was, and I was on a budget. Do you know, I'm going to have to wait for a granddaughter. I cannot get this on. There's like a gaposis of 2 inches, and I've bought like chain extenders, and then they always kind of slide around, and they're right where they shouldn't be and stuff. It's odd. My wedding ring, I can't wear my wedding ring anymore either. So I decided to forego the souvenir of jewelry this time. And so when we went to the Keukenhof to see the tulips, and we had our picnic of Gouda cheese and croissants and stuff, we stopped at the kiosk, and in September, we're going to get a package from the Netherlands with a rather luxurious array of tulips. I hope that they work out here in New England. You know, we are coastal, and the advisor said, don't get too many tall ones if you're in the wind, and the double-headed ones, which are beautiful, they look almost like peonies or roses, they have a tendency to fall over. So we didn't get those. One of the things we did, though, at the Van Gogh Museum is we went up to their bookstore. I was really kind of disappointed. I had a friend, Jenny, recommend to me this movie, Loving Vincent. And so she said she had seen it on Netflix. We went on Netflix and we couldn't find it. But it wound up on National Geographic. You could download it from there. And we watched this movie that was live footage that was animated by 100 and some odd artists, took the still shots and animated each one in a style of Vincent van Gogh, which was pretty fascinating. The Loving Vincent movie, Vincent painted the postmaster several times. In the movie, the postmaster sends his son, who Vincent also painted, to go deliver a letter to Vincent's brother. And so the son goes on an adventure. It's kind of an interesting thing because when I was in France, the French said that Vincent's death was a mystery. Some people said it was suicide, some people said it was murder, some people said it was an accident. Loving Vincent, the movie, is about that mystery. So we bought this as a present for our friends Victor and Nancy. Come to find out, they can't play it. It's coded for Europe. So that if you purchase the DVD in Europe, you can't play it on an American DVD player. I was not happy about that. But we had them over to supper, and since we'd already paid the money to see it once, we were able to download it again for free and show it to them on our television. I had hoped to give it to them because my friend Victor is a painter. We had an opportunity to sit and read Vincent's letters to his brother Theo. I was struck by how erudite the man was. His paintings are so visceral that I didn't expect this learned, almost poetic writer. Vincent is pretty amazing. But the book of his letters to his brother Theo is this thick, and that's the abridged version. The whole set is 2 volumes. So we decided that we would order them and get them sent. But instead, we got a book of Zen poetry. When I got to the Barangay, one of the first things that greeted me in the reception area is this Buddha. And I was like, oh, you're Buddhist, how great. And the guy got kind of sheepish. He was kind of apologetic because I turned around and there was a different Buddha. The one was a Thai Buddha and the other was a teaching Buddha. And I was like, wow, how cool is that for me? Like very unexpected. And he goes, I'm sorry, we purchased it as a decoration and friends of ours gave us more. So now we have quite a few of them, but we're not really Buddhist. I was like, oh. So in our room, near the bed, was the Buddha. And I had worked with this book by Judith Cornell about doing mandalas and drawing light out of darkness. And so part of my traveling kit that I put together, I brought black paper and I made a copy of this Buddha that was over our bed. And in the movie, I was impressed by how much I loved the black and white work. Come to find out that Vincent van Gogh was a proponent of black and white, that he didn't feel like everything should be color, that draftsmanship was important. So in the book, here's black and white mandalas, and I got interested in healing mandalas enough that I purchased a brass plaque of the Sri Yantra, which is on the cover of this book. It's a healing symbol from India. It's energy healing. We got to go to the Embassy of the Free Mind. It was spectacular. It was the highlight for me of the trip. Kevin set up for the conservator, a woman who took care of the manuscripts, to give us a personal tour. So we get there and we go into this beautiful, airy, locked room with windows overlooking the back garden. And in Amsterdam, the buildings are tight and close together. But sometimes the buildings made a quadrangle with a hole in the middle with a garden in the center for, the children or the ladies who are ever to be out of the house but not on the streets. The streets are narrow. And I brought this in to show you also so that I could remember. For years, I've been angry that the city of Boston isn't more pro-bicycle. Well, live and learn. The bicycles in Amsterdam, I swear they're licensed to kill tourists. Here in the States, pedestrians have the right of way. In the city of Amsterdam, bicycles have the right of way. There was a t-shirt for sale and it said, Amsterdam, a bicycle city since 17-something or another. And I was like, oh my goodness. There were, I kid you not, thousands and thousands of bicycles. And they go, and you better jump out of the way or they will run you over. And someone we were speaking to said, do you know, if there is an accident between an automobile and a bicycle, the automobile is wrong no matter what. And that my fear, I got afraid of the bicycles after a while. In Rockport, we have this odd intersection of 5 corners. Well, near where the Baron Gay bed and breakfast was this intersection that was like 7 corners and bicycles coming from both directions, and turning like 14 different ways they could come at you from. It was like I'd have to do deep breathing. We made it through the bicycles. And it's kind of funny when you're on vacation, you do things that you might not do or you probably wouldn't do at home. And so we're walking down the street and a lot of the shops said e-cigarettes and seeds. And if it said that, it was a marijuana place and you smelled these sort of like a bar, but like a coffee shop where people would sit and either have wine or beer or coffee or tea and smoke weed, and there were pipe shops everywhere. And Kevin and I looked at one another. We're in our 60s. I was like, and he's like, maybe not. And we met this beautiful young woman. She had to be 6'3", and I mentioned something about it, and she said, no, really, you should try it. It's very soothing. And I thought, yeah, I did that when I was your age, back in the day. But it was interesting because she was so statuesque. The people in the Netherlands are some of the tallest people in the world. We decided that we were not going to turn on the television. And so I heard through hearsay about the volcano erupting in Hawaii. It was kind of strange. We were in this little bubble away from politics, away from news, which is typically bad news. I brought along my old cell phone. I used it as an iPod. I have hundreds and hundreds of songs in here. A lot of them are kind of quiet, easy listening things. Well, I turned it on. You're not allowed to have a phone unless you activate it. They took it from 100% power to 31% power in a matter of like 10 songs. Like, activate this phone, activate this phone. I was like, no. It's like $40 a month to have a spare phone. If my phone dies, I'll activate it then. It was kind of strange. It bothered me. And then I thought, take a deep breath. There's the Buddha in our room. And I kind of was like, things happen on a trip. Like, I don't know if any of you have been down to Boston to the Prudential Tower. At the top, there's a restaurant that has a revolving outer ring called the Top of the Hub. And it revolves very, very slowly. And you get a 360-degree view of the city of Boston. Kevin and I went, and Kevin was sort of like, it was over 200 euros. We got a 5-course rather than the 7-course meal. Our two little glasses of sparkling wine were 30 euros. And they brought us these 5, think tapas, but tiny and beautiful and delicious. So here we are at this great restaurant. You know, the day that we got lost in the red light district trying to find Andrew these world-class chocolates, we wound up in Doag, W-A-A-G, which back when Amsterdam was a walled city, before cannonballs could blow a hole in a wall so that walls weren't a good defense. We won't go there. But anyway, when Amsterdam was a walled city, it had a city gate. So when we're in the red light district, some, fundamentalist somebody decided that you weren't allowed to go to the red light district. So they broadcast this thing into your phone so that your GPS wouldn't work. And Kevin was, our navigator with his telephone with the GPS. And of course it stopped working. There we are in the red light district and the GPS isn't working. So we came out. I said, I don't care where we go. Let's just get out of here. And we came out into this square. And like I said, it was sunny and gorgeous. The Amsterdammers were out in hordes. If there was a cafe, it was chock-a-block, just slam dunked with people. I saw some mounted police. I said, let's follow them. And we wound up at this large building that was imposing. It gave off the feel of a castle. And it turned out they've turned the city gate into a really high-class restaurant. So I said, come on, Kevin, follow me. And he's like, but we don't have reservations. So I walked in and I talked to the manager and I said, can we get dinner? It was like 5 o'clock their time. He says, every table is reserved. Oh, you mean now? And I was like, yeah, because you're 6 hours ahead and my stomach says it's supper time. And he said, well, can you be out by 7:30? And I thought, it's 5. I think I could eat dinner in 2.5 hours. And so we had, oh, what a meal. It was glorious. The other place that we had a really good meal was at the Reich Museum. We had to wait 45 minutes in line, but we wound up getting this beautiful, beautiful lunch at the Reich Museum's cafeteria. And then one of the days when it was like muggy, it got to be 79 degrees. And some of the locals were like, this is a little scary. We don't even get to like 80 degrees Fahrenheit in August, let alone May. So some of the, we got sunburn that day. And the Amsterdammers were like, yeah, this is wonderful, but it's a little scary too because it's not our normal weather. So I said, hey, Kevin, remember when we were online? There's the concert Gogh. And it was the night of this concert that was going to be performed the week we were there. And we went. And it was Jaap van Zweden. And he did Bruckner's Fifth in C. And we went over. It's that night. I said, do you have any tickets left? And she said, aren't you fortunate? I have season ticket holders that just turned in 2 very fine seats if you don't mind being behind the orchestra. I'm thinking, I sing sometimes behind Cape Ann Symphony. I thought, no, that'll be cool. So I pulled out my I Am Amsterdam card and it was 40 euros off the rather stunning price. And I said, okay, Kevin, now we can go get dinner. And so we wound up at Boof. Oh my goodness. It was so good. And I like sweet wine. So I said to the lady, do you have any sweet wine? She said, well, there's a bottle that's been here since I've been here, and I've worked here for years. And I said, oh, can I see it? I'm interested. And she pulled it out. It was Pouilly Fussé. Kevin and I used to drink that when we were newlyweds and back in the 80s. And I said, can we buy the bottle? She said, I have no idea what to charge for this. I'll go ask the chef. So she comes back and she goes, it'll be 27 euros. And that was the cheapest thing. All the other bottles of wine were like much more than that. I said, yeah, good, sold, done. And so we sat there and we drank an entire bottle of wine. And then we went to Concert Gabao, and it was amazing. We sat behind the basses and the cellos, and we got to see the conductor conduct the orchestra. And this piece is kind of bombastic. And so initially we didn't buy tickets in advance. And then I thought, pretend it's a soundtrack to a Star Wars movie. And once I did that, I kind of got into it. It was great. They had 5, count them, 5 standing ovations. It was like, wow, one of the highlights of my life. I was like, how cool is that? The Van Gogh was kind of sad in a way. You know, at the Van Gogh Museum, there's an entire room of his self-portraits. And when I was young, a child, my mom suffered from manic depressive disorder. And everybody is like all tuned into Vincent's sunflowers, you know, the beautiful bright sunflowers. But in 1887, he painted 4 cut sunflowers, and they're somber. And I thought about my mom, how hard she fought against depression and how it was a losing battle for her until they came up with lithium. But lithium gave her hands the shakes. This is a seascape. It was done in 1888. You really get to see Vincent's genius, you know, his impasto style. Our friends Victor and Nancy came over, and I tried to do like a hi, we're back dinner, and I made my very first vegetarian lasagna. It came out pretty good. I was so nervous about it. And then I told you our last day we were going to go to Iceland. And in Iceland, there's this hot spring. A whole lot of the energy in Iceland is geothermal. They're actually sitting on magma. And we went to a beautiful restaurant there too. And the waiter, named Raphael, said he wanted to come to the United States. And he made me a cheese plate because I was trying to avoid sweets. Boy, the people in Amsterdam eat a lot of sweets. We walked miles in Amsterdam, even in the rain. But there's like apple cake everywhere and all these things, people licking ice cream cones. But in Iceland, we had what would be like a really luxury American hotel room with a balcony, a king-size bed, and a sofa and sitting area with a rocking chair. After the Barangay, it felt like palatial. It was huge because we were in these little tiny quarters for like a week, and then we get this big room. And there it was, raining almost sleet, like the low 30s, and we're in these big terry cloth bathrobes and flip-flops, and we go into this hot spring that was a little too warm to be a bathtub, a little cooler than a jacuzzi. And we're in up to our necks with this sleeting cold rain falling on our heads. I thought, you know, if you asked me to do that at Millbrook Pond, I probably wouldn't do it. You know, I don't know. You do odd things when you're on vacation. And I have this book that I study about painting. It's called Textures in Landscapes. I should have read it better. I'm there, and when you travel with a portable art kit and your paper is the size of a postcard, it's really hard to come up with something as majestic as the moonscape out our deck with the big glass doors and the windows. It was big lava boulders covered in mosses and lichens. It was pretty spectacular. I hope to go back one day. Oh, and after all that big buildup, I never did tell you what I bought at the Vanderland. So you can buy, like I showed you, these empty things with colors. So over the years, I've bought a lot of colors. So I decided I would fill this little mini ice cube tray with all my colors and bring it with me so I had plenty to paint with. And I get to the Netherlands, and after being banged around in the luggage compartment of the aircraft, a lot of them had chipped. And so I had all these flakes of the wrong color in the wrong color, and I took them out and I put them on the paper, and I just played like a little kid with all these little chips of the wrong color. And so what I wound up getting was an actual professionally made set of Schmink watercolors. And there's my watercolor set from the Netherlands. It wasn't that I didn't have watercolors, but I wanted a souvenir, something to remember the trip, because it really was pretty spectacular to have my Kevin all to myself for days. It was really nice. And then we had to come back and get into the grind. But I'm going to send Joseph of the Embassy of the Free Mind a copy of my friend Jeffrey Mishlov's book, The Roots of Consciousness, because Jeffrey was the only person I ever knew to spend time talking about the primordial tradition of being timeless and spaceless. It's a Hermetic tradition, and Joseph was very interested in that. And the conservatress who had us in the big locked room let us see and touch hand-done manuscripts from the 1500s and copies that were done by monks of manuscripts from the 1600s. And there's a special Dutch word for the first 100 books that came off the Gutenberg press, and she brought out some of those. It means caught, as in catching a baby that's being born. And we sat there, and we were just about to leave the Embassy of the Free Mind, and we had met Joseph's son. And he talked to his father and told his father that Kevin and I had come all the way from Massachusetts to see the beautiful illuminated manuscripts. And Joseph, who's 77 years old, came down and said, "Would you like to have a coffee?" And I elbowed Kevin and I said, "We would love to have a coffee. Would you like to have a piece of apple cake?" "Yes, we would love to have a piece of apple cake." And we went in and we sat and we had coffee and apple cake. And Joseph talked to us about why he collected the second largest collection in the world, second only to the Vatican, of these beautiful, rare manuscripts. I felt really blessed. Anyway, we're out of time. I have so much more to tell you. Maybe I'll fill you in on the stuff I forgot next time. But this has been Marjohn, and this has been Marjohn's Musings. I hope you get the chance to go gallivanting yourself. Bring back some souvenirs.